Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 157, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to podcasts, with the videos on YouTube. And one hell of a show we have today here in the desert. It's a hot Thursday afternoon. I'm ready. In the next couple weeks, I get to go to Seattle for a friend's wedding, catch a Mariners game in a suite. It's supposed to be like 80 degrees, but the cold plunge has been a lifesaver. Regardless, we have quite a show. A lot of fights have been announced. We have the Ultimate Fighter Episode 8 conversation, recapping last weekend's PFL event in DC, this weekend's event in New York, recapping the early action UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi last weekend, and this weekend's early morning action in Serbia. So let's jump right in. Some fights that have been announced. We have Manuel Sousa taking on LFA alum Richie Miranda, who was the LFA lightweight champion with 2 title defenses, fighting on August 8th. So here fairly quickly. One hell of a scrap. Sousa, who fought in PFL, Richie Miranda beating a guy I know, Richie Lewis, quality competition, and got a 5th round finish, outdid him in that matchup. Very high quality matchup here for Richie, making his UFC debut against a tough Sousa. We also have Miles Johns versus Jesse Rosas on August 8th. August 22nd, we have Jamal Emmers and Laren Douglas. On August 29th, we have Jack Jenkins taking on Sean Woodson. It's kind of fun. Both of those fights, high action. For Paris, we have Saladin Parnassi, a KSW alum and multiple division champion. One of the more accoladed athletes to sign with the UFC finally, is main eventing against Dan Hooker. Welcome to the UFC, my man. Let's see what you got on September 5th. Another banger. We get TUF alum Danil Danchenko taking on Contender Series alum Puna Soriano. September 12th, here in Arizona for UFC Noche. Tickets actually went on pre-sale this morning, so me and some friends scooped them up. The ticket price is a little higher than I expected. For the back of the 100 level, it was like 500 and some change. I miss the days of those being at least 300, especially for fight night cards. And the card has delivered. At first, I was a little concerned, but they're selling tickets with no announced main event. I've seen a lot of rumors. If I was having a fantasy main event matchmaker session, I would say finally Yair Rodriguez, Diego Lopez, but supposedly Diego's moving up. So there's rumors that it's John Silva, Yair Rodriguez, who knows, but I hope it's a banger. But these ones are great additions. We have Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Muslim Salikov, and then Drakkar Klose, who trains here at a Red Hawk and MMA Lab, taking on Tommy Gant. Would love to see Tommy McMillan. A lot of the MMA Lab guys are begging to get on this card, including Marcus McGee. So hopefully at least there's one more with the local guys and the main event announced like now. We need it announced. We also have Dan Ige making his bantamweight debut against David Martinez. Dan Ige just doesn't get easy opponents. That's one hell of a tough scrap in the in his bantamweight debut. Should be a fun striking battle unless David looks to grapple. And then we have a lot of fights announced for UFC 331, September 19th in the Staples or Crypto.com arena. What a banger this is. Patricio Pitbull and Duho Choi. Edmund Shabazian and Bruno Fajeda. I mean, those are going to be high action knockouts. We have Casey O'Neill taking on Eduardo Mora. And then some fights booked into October. We have Mateusz Camillo taking on Jai Herbert. Haven't seen Jai in a while. Main event for UFC Edmonton, October 17th. Joaquin Buckley and, of course, Mike Malott, always just fighting in Canada. And then Aaron Blanchfield taking on Jasmine Jazz Davicius in the co-main. In MMA news, the big announcement today is that the PFL and Most Valuable Promotions MMA will be merging. So fighters can compete and collide there. Some of the guys that have been doing the MMA, guys like Francis Ngannou can take on Verhoeven in boxing. To me, that's just signs of desperation. These promotions can't live outside of the UFC. They're struggling. The PFL with new ownership, taking away the tournament situation and the big paydays. We saw the announcement of what fighters are getting paid in the PFL. So this is probably their last leg trying to make this happen. And we'll get to the PFL here in a second. But we had Ultimate Fighter on Tuesday, the final quarterfinal matchup. And this was a fun fight against two high-level guys. We had Macias Urania and Xavier Franklin. If that rings a bell, Xavier Franklin fought on the Contender Series last year against David Martinez and went into deep waters with him. We've seen how good David Martinez is now fighting Dan Ige on UFC Noche and in the top rankings of one of the best divisions in the UFC. And before the fight, Michael Bisping played a prank on Team DC saying that your training time is over. We have our guys coming in. He had a bunch of midgets and dancers, like Brewfest type dancers dressed in dresses and stuff coming in. DC was really not happy, saying this was his least favorite moment in Ultimate Fighter history because it's his third time on the show. I thought it was great. Break up the monotony. That's the stuff we love to see on the TUF reality. So good job by Michael Bisping. And the first round of the fight, Xavier was exploding, measuring big shots, trying to knock out Macias. And Macias was doing a good job keeping Franklin at range with his kicks, throwing knees up the middle. The first round was very close. I did think Xavier was landing the bigger shots and having the bigger moments. But at the very end of round one, Urania just started circling, getting on his bike and running around the octagon. And with seconds remaining, Xavier kneed his shoulder while he was down. DC was trying to say it was to the head, but it wasn't. It wasn't a downed opponent. He rocked him right here on the chest and shoulder, came up and followed up for a vicious finish. It wasn't illegal. It was valid. And Dana was even telling DC, like, I don't know what you're worried about. Here's the review. But regardless, quality matchup there. Xavier Franklin has to be a favorite. I believe it was Bisping's first pick at bantamweight. And they have announced the semifinal fights. We get Gigi Canuto taking on Bisping's lone female, Melissa Amaya. That'll be the first fight next week. We have Tina Black fighting her teammate in Delfine. Xavier Franklin against the very good grappler in Illenbeck. And Christian Strong against the young, cocky Muhammad Ali. I'm hoping Christian Strong, high wrestling accolades, takes it to him to slow this young guy down. He's been acting like he's the shit, Conor McGregor style. Next week, we also get the Coaches Challenge. DC and Bisping are going to compete in fencing. So I don't expect much there except a lot of shit talking. But we are into the nitty gritty of the Ultimate Fighter to see who will be the champions and getting a UFC contract. I mean, what a road for Xavier. Almost beating David Martinez, landing the bigger, more damaging shots in that fight. But David had a lot of leg kicks and volume to steal the decision. Now has to go through the Ultimate Fighter gauntlet and is taking on an amazing Illenbeck who has grappling to the next level, and Bisping's done nothing but praise him. But last Saturday, we had PFL Washington, D.C. in the evening. The main event, we had Thad Jean with a round 3 TKO over Ernesto Rodriguez. This was actually a really good fight on short notice. Thad Jean was supposed to fight Shamil Gaziev or something, not Shamil Gaziev, Musayev, but he pulled out because of issues weight cutting. Ernesto was supposed to fight somebody else, so they threw him into the main event. Ernesto rocked Thad multiple times early. Somehow Thad was able to survive and ended up getting his own finish. So back and forth, one of the better PFL fights that you'll see. We had Rafael Xavier with a round 1 TKO over Tyson Pedro, ex-UFCer. I just think he should be done. Xavier, A big guy for the division, just walked Pedro down, was launching high kick, body kick, crumpled him up against the cage and went to town. We had 10-0 Razul Magomedov with a unanimous decision over Sullivan Cauley. Wyoming stud wrestler, MMA lab trainer Bryce Meredith with a unanimous decision on a short notice bout against Michael Sear. He was supposed to fight a guy he's been booked against 2 times before. Bryce got hurt the first time. I forget the other guy's name, got hurt this time. But Bryce showed out in his wrestling there. Would like to see his hands more, but was originally on the co-main. Definitely getting his accolades up in that division. This weekend, PFL has lost a few fights as well. That was the big hit on Washington, D.C. I thought it was pacing to be the best card this year. A lot of injuries and issues. We've dropped 2 fights on this weekend's card. But this won't be going head-to-head with the UFC. It's on Friday. ESPN Plus prelims at 1 p.m. Main card at 4 p.m. on ESPN Television. We have the 2 star-studded fighters in the PFL in action. We have Usman Nurmagomedov taking on another Wyoming alum. Got to represent my Wyoming guys, and Archie Colgan, a very high wrestler. That should be an interesting matchup, although Usman is a massive favorite. We have Dakota Dacheva taking on Denise Kielholtz. Dakota's been out for over a year after her injury. She's like a minus 4,000 favorite. I don't even know anything about this Denise girl. She has no resume whatsoever. This is the challenge at the PFL. They don't have enough contenders for their big name signings. There was rumor that Dakota might be at the end of her PFL contract, but she has like 4 or 5 fights left. So it doesn't seem like she's going to be going to the UFC anytime soon. And they're going to need her on that MVP collision to be able to make sales for their new promotion. But Dakota, a lot of these guys, Brian Battle recently, and Thad Jean saying that the PFL is just as high competition as the UFC, and that a lot of these guys will go over and dominate in their divisions. Thad Jean thinks he could be a welterweight champion. And I hate to tell you, man, you almost got finished by Ernesto Rodriguez because you were cocky and didn't take him seriously. The welterweight division is loaded with heavy hitters. I don't think he would stand a chance. He's still a pretty green fighter. Dakota, I have been very impressed with how vicious she is in the clinch with her elbows. You know, she even talked about going to a UFC event and how big of a scene it was, and she would be nervous walking out. I just don't think these people are at that level. I do think people like Johnny Eblin and Usman could be top 5, but there's few and far between in the PFL that's that kind of quality. And we've seen a lot of people come over and they haven't fared very well. So Denise is an old Bellator vet. Again, she has no quality wins. I wish we could have got Dakota in the UFC, but on the Ariel Helwani show, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. We have 10-0 Amru Magomedov, a UAE Warriors champion, taking on Angel Alvarez, a Cage Fury champ. We have Rafian Stotts taking on Lazaro Dairon. Lazaro just had an awesome matchup against my guy Bryce Meredith last year. Gets the veteran Rafian Stotts. It's a big matchup. And former ex-UFCer Montana De La Rosa taking on Tatiana Postarnikova. Enough about that. Let's talk UFC. We had UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi early morning. I didn't sleep well and ended up catching the whole thing and taking an afternoon nappy. I went 8-3 on my picks. Overall, 960 wins, 464 losses, 14 no contests and draws. On the year, 180 wins, 74 losses, 3 no contests and draws. Well over doubling up that loss record. To recap this card, we had some injury issues and some conjugulation here as well. Sadly, the day of, Islam Dulatov pulled out of his fight due to illness after making weight. Hate to have to pull out after making weight. That's brutal. The card overall, there was a lot of mix of takedowns or violent knockdown fights, so a lot of grappling. We had the insane submission streak alive with Valter Walker. I thought the main card was okay. Ramazan Temirov clearly made a statement and stole the show, but the main event was a complete dud. I recapped this a 5 out of 10. Really, all you needed to watch was the Ramazan performance. Some good fights we did not break down. We had Abdul Hussein with a round 3 submission via arm triangle over Cody Gibson. And Abdul was in the tryouts for this season in Ultimate Fighter, and he did not get picked. So he asked DC if he remembered him after the show, already in the UFC getting a big win. And we had Mohamed Saidov with a round 2 TKO over Dustin Jacoby. Big name in their UFC debut. He made a statement. I would say him and Ramazan had the best performances, as he really dominated Dustin. I was shocked by that. That was a fight I got wrong. We broke down 4 prelim fights. We had Nurullo Aliev with a unanimous decision over Mike Davis. This is one of the fights I got wrong. And as I expected, this was clearly a striker versus grappler showdown. Aliev was relentless in his grappling. He did not give Mike any time or space to keep the fight standing and let his striking go to work. This reminded me of the recent fight between Asu Almabayev, as Mike showcased really good defense. Asu fought Charles Johnson, and his ability to fight off his back was really good. He was firing off damage from his back with elbows and hammer fists, because Nurullo was just looking to dominate the position. He wasn't really looking for a lot of submissions or firing ground and pound from top. Nurullo just controlled almost every single minute of this fight, so he was going to win a decision. He had 8 takedowns, but again, he really didn't do much damage, anything spectacular once he got the takedowns. Tough position for Mike. After the loss, he went on a rage on social media complaining about grapplers and saying, I thought the UFC wasn't trying to sign grapplers. He said that was he's gay for doing that. He's since apologized for his rant, but I understand it's not fun being grapple fucked for 15 minutes, because that's what Nurullo did. He was chest to chest with him and never gave him a shot. Again, brutal and frustrating loss, because Mike is talented, and I thought he fought tremendously with the situation at hand. But Nurullo now with the win is going to be fighting some stiff competition and is going to have to showcase that he can strike. I mean, look at the stats. Technically, Nurullo landed 81 total shots, but a lot of that ticky-tacky, only 13 significant. He had 8 takedowns in 13 attempts. So although Mike fought valiantly with his defense, if he did want the takedown, he got it. He had a submission attempt, a reversal, and 12 minutes and 25 seconds of control time. So all but 2.5 minutes of control time. Mike landed 55 total strikes, 22 of them significant, and he had 2 submission attempts. So Nurullo stays undefeated. He extends that winning streak to 12, 5-0 in the UFC. And Mike starts a new losing streak. He is 2-2 since 2024. So what's next? I would like to see Nurullo take on Jim Miller. I think that'd be a fun fight with Jim's grappling abilities. And for Mike, a fight with Kyle Nelson is the one that I would make. Moving on. We had Axel Sola with a round 1 submission via Bravo choke over Ismael Bonfim. And this fight didn't last long. I mean, Axel was taken down early, and once he got up and was able to put his hands on Ismael, he was able to snatch his neck, because Ismael was kind of in desperation mode. He was able to beat him up, and once he sold out on grappling, Axel's very tall and dangerous for the division. Axel was going to be able to snatch that neck. Axel is going to be a problem at the lightweight division, because he looked a lot better cutting weight this time after having the experience the first time. And at this point, Ismael may be dead to the UFC. If he does get more chances, his back's going to be against the wall. And it's sad because he's in the middle of his prime. Statistically, Ismael only landed 1 total and significant strike. He had 1 takedown in 3 attempts with 2 minutes and 3 seconds of control time. And Axel landed 77 total, 33 significant. So again, he was beating him up before Ismael was desperate for takedowns and snatched that neck. He had a submission attempt, a knockdown, and 2 minutes and 3 seconds of control time. So Axel starts a new winning streak, his first in the lightweight division. He's now 2-1 in the UFC. And Ismael extends his losing streak to 3. He is 1-3 since 2024. So what's next? Well, if Ismael does get another chance in the UFC, I'd book him against Nicholas Moda. And for Axel, a fun scrap with Lance Gibson Jr. is in store. Moving on, we had Sam Patterson with a round 2 TKO over Santiago Ponzinibbio. And both of these guys did start pretty measured. Santiago was pressuring Sam, trying to close in, but Sam was throwing big shots and counterattacks. And once Sam was able to pick Santiago from distance, he was circling and keeping that distance, so Santiago couldn't land those big shots. Once Sam put his hands on Santiago in the second round, he had him wobbled and was able to pounce on the finish. And Santiago now needs to consider retirement or maybe a last dance fight, in my opinion. Sam, though, again, wasn't very aggressive. He just kind of took what Santiago gave him, took advantage of the damage that Ponzinibbio has had throughout his career. I wasn't vastly impressed with Sam's performance. I think he needs to be more aggressive, especially because he was in total control. He could have done a lot more. Statistically, Santiago only landed 14 total insignificant strikes, was 0 for 1 in takedowns. Sam landed 65 total strikes, 64 of them significant, with 2 knockdowns. So again, he was in total control. I would have liked to see him be more aggressive. Sam starts a new winning streak. He is 5-1 since 2024. He's been active. He's winning. And Santiago extends his losing streak to 2. He's 1-3 since 2024. So what's next? Well, Sam's going to be in against some killers. I think Chaos Williams would be a fun fight. And again, for Santiago, I think he should at least consider retirement or retirement fight. Maybe someone like Nikolai Veretennikov. Then we had another submission by Valter Walker. Round 1 submission via calf slicer over Thomas Petersen. Performance of the night, 100 G's to Valter. And Thomas was able to start this fight the way he wanted, getting a takedown. But then Valter went bonkers, going for his legs, went for the heel hook. Thomas showed good defense, was able to wiggle out. But as he was limp-legging and getting up, Valter butt-scooted with him and locked in his leg for that calf slicer. You could see Thomas was disappointed. He was in complete shock that he got that. Brutal loss for Thomas. You know, as a UFC fighter, losing this way is the worst situation. And Valter continues his submission rise, making slight work of heavyweight's legs. Not a lot of stats here. Valter landed 3 total strikes, 1 significant with 2 submission attempts. And Thomas landed 6 total strikes, was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. He technically kind of did get the takedown, though. That's what led to this. But Valter extends his winning streak to 5. He has the longest submission winning streak in the UFC. He's 5-1 since 2024 and moves up 3 spots to number 10. I believe he's tied for the submission streak anyways. And Thomas starts a new losing streak. He is 3-4 since 2024. So what's next? Well, Ante D'Elia was supposed to fight Johnny Walker in his heavyweight debut. Since that's not happening, I'd like to see him fight Valter Walker. And for Thomas, how about Taliesin Teixeira? Moving into the main card, we had Rizvan Kuniev with a round 3 technical knockout over Tyrell Fortune. Fight of the night, 100 G's to Rizvan. And to me, this fight was all about Tyrell showing off his grit, his determination, and his toughness. Kind of in the worst way, because Rizvan was all over him up against the cage. He was dirty boxing the shit out of him. Beautiful clinched knees up the middle, destroyed Tyrell's body for 15 minutes. And Tyrell would launch some bombs back when they were at distance, but the majority of this fight, Rizvan would try to cut the cage off on Fortune and catch him with his back against the to fire shots in close, attack the body, or clinch him. And when he was exiting, knees or elbows, lots of damage. He had a big moose on his eye by round 2. In round 2, Tyrell at this position was just in survival and defensive mode. Rizvan had cut up Tyrell, beaten his face up, his eye was all swollen. And by the end of round 2, you could sense a finish coming. But Tyrell continued to take nasty knees and body shots in the third round, trying to fire back, but eventually just crumpled down. I was kind of hating these heavyweights for being top 10 in the UFC, but Rizvan did shut my mouth a little bit. He is proving that he belongs. You know, Tyrell is going to be fine as a ranked heavyweight, but he needs to add to his game if he wants to stay in the mix. Statistically, Rizvan landed 68 total strikes, 66 of them significant with a knockdown and 2 minutes and 21 seconds of control time. And Tyrell landed 29 total strikes, 20 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedown attempts. So pretty dominant display here. Rizvan extends his winning streak to 2. He is 3-1 since 2024, stays at number 8 in the rankings. And Tyrell ends his 4-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He is 1-1 in the UFC and drops 2 spots to number 11. So what's next? I think for Rizvan, Sergey Pavlovich is the fight I want to see. Sergey's kind of in purgatory. He's going to have to take a fight or sit on the shelf. And again, for Tyrell, I actually had him fighting Valter Walker here, but that's not going to happen. Let's see. How about Mick Parkin? That'd be fun. Then the highlight of the dance here in the co-main, a fight I got wrong. We had Ramazan Temirov with a round 1 TKO over Steve Erceg. Performance of the night, 100 G's to Ramazan. I mean, sheesh. Ramazan came out the gates and wanted to take Steve's head off, and that's exactly what he did. Steve was circling and trying to use his length to create space. I thought he would have success there and get through the first round and outpoint Temirov. But Temirov was firing off big right hands that Steve would try to elude. But after a while, Temirov started finding the mark, just selling out on a finish. Erceg couldn't handle the pressure and power. And the final combo that Ramazan had, that finish was spectacular, man. I really think he's a new true contender for the stacked flyweight division. I overlooked him after the steroid situation, but supposedly he was prescribed something, yada yada. There is no doubt this guy is explosive and powerful, even though he's a shorter guy for the division. And I mean, he put a shutout here. Steve only landed 11 total and significant strikes, was 0 for 1 in takedowns. Ramazan landed 32 total, 27 significant, and had 2 knockdowns in that round. So Steve ends his 2-fight winning streak. He starts a new losing streak. He drops 1 spot to number 11. And Ramazan extends his winning streak to 12. He's 3-0 in the UFC and re-enters the rankings at number 13. So what's next? I think the fight to make is Ramazan and Asu Almabayev, 2 high-level fighters coming off brilliant performances. That would be a fun, high-paced showdown. And for Steve, he could look to rebound against Tagir Ulanbekov or Charles Johnson. Then the dud of a main event. He finally got the finish. We had Magomed Ankalaev with a round 5 TKO over Bogdan Guskov. And this was just a boring fight. Bogdan wasn't willing to exchange in the biggest fight of his life here. He would fire his left hand here and there, or maybe a hook, but he wouldn't follow it. He has announced that he hurt his right hand early in the fight. That's why he couldn't do that. I'm not sure. Short notice, wing it, send it at least. He didn't try. I think Bogdan should be crucified for this fight. You know, Magomed's patience started to run thin throughout this fight. He was just said, fuck it. I'm going to take Bogdan down if he doesn't want to strike with me. And he started mauling him. But this opened up a can of worms for me. I'm not sure if Ankalaev only wanted a knockout to try to get the title shot or what. Because he had multiple submission opportunities in round 4 and 5. He did not take advantage of getting Bogdan's neck. And I know he's capable of doing that. I'm not too sure what the situation was. But Bogdan looked horrible off his back. He didn't try to fight up. He was just laying there. It was a kind of disaster to watch. I typically don't want to be a hater in these situations. But regardless, Bogdan takes a big blow. I don't think he'll ever be a champion or a top 5 light heavyweight. Magomed deserves to fight for the interim title, although this was the most fun fight. It does take 2 to tango in a fight, but Magomed has had multiple fights like this as well. You know, kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. So who knows if the UFC skips him, but I would love to see him and Paulo Costa for the interim title. Statistically, I mean, domination. Magomed landed 156 total strikes, only 54 significant. He had 2 takedowns in 4 attempts. Again, started doing this in rounds 3, 4, and 5. He had 3 submission attempts and 8 minutes and 26 seconds of control time. So if he wanted the takedown, he got it. Had a few submissions, but didn't sell out for it. He could have got the rear naked choke in round 3 and 4 and had a little over a round of control time, round and a half. Bogdan only landed 45 total strikes, 39 of them significant with a submission attempt. But Magomed starts a new winning streak. He is 4-1 since 2024. He stays at the number 1 contender spot. And Bogdan ends his 4-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He only drops 1 spot to number 10. So like I said, I think it should be Magomed, Ankalaev, and Paulo Costa for the interim light heavyweight title. If for some reason things don't get moving quick though, Carlos Ulberg said he could fight at the beginning of the year, so it could be Magomed and Carlos Ulberg, but I do think they will put an interim shot in before the end of the year. And for Bogdan, how about Alonzo Menefield? But yeah, main event was a dud. Ramazan, brilliant performance, but it didn't last long. Kuniev dominated Tyrell. We got the quick submission by Valter. That was kind of fun, but it was just a snoozy card. And this weekend, we get another early morning action because it's in Serbia. Prelims at 7 a.m. Pacific. Main card 10 a.m. Pacific, all on Paramount Plus. And to preview this card, I mean, it's not very deep. There has been some fun fights that have fallen out and some changes here. I do think the prelims are skippable, not must watch by any means. Although I am pretty pumped for the prelim headliner. I was really excited for the original fight between Bogdan and Musayev. Pretty bummed that that's not going to happen. And the main card is pretty sloppy, but could surprise, maybe make for some good fights. I'm interested to see the crowd in Serbia the first time they fought there. If you look at how Serbia shows out for their basketball and Nikola Jokic and the world basketball competition and the Olympics, they're pretty wild. So I expect a crazy scene. I expect the crowd to be wild. Hopefully the fights deliver for them. Some good fights we will not break down. We have Contender Series alum Mark Vologdan taking on short notice UFC debuter and Brave alum Borislav Nikolic. We have Oban Elliott taking on Contender Series Michael Oliveira. Pretty much must win for Oban, and he's taking on a heavy-handed striker. And then Ultimate Fighter alum Gilbert Urbina taking on Octagon alum Vlasto Chepo in his UFC debut. Pretty much must win for Gilbert Urbina as well. We are previewing 3 prelim fights. We have Mateusz Rebecki, 33 years old with a 20-5 record, taking on Kyle Killshot Prepolec, 36 years old with an 18-10 record. Now, Kyle Prepolec made the UFC for fighting Benoit Saint-Denis on short notice. He replaced Yoel Alvarez. But for some reason, they continue to book him against quality competition. But he's been beaten up pretty badly. It doesn't seem like he belongs in the UFC. Mateusz, on the other hand, is in desperate need of a win. He's on a 3-fight losing streak against top competition because he was kind of pole vaulted after he had an awesome fight of the year contender fight against Miktabik Oralbai a few years ago. And Oralbai since has looked amazing since he moved up to welterweight. Rebecki is a bit of a wild striker, so I think Kyle is going to have to look to grapple or try to catch him with some counter shots for his first UFC victory. Breaking it down, Mateusz trains out of American Top Team. He's a Contender Series alum. 3 of his last 4 fights have been fight of the night. He is showing up. He's showing out. Kill or be killed. Had that 2024 fight of the year against Oralbai. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, 1-4 since 2024. 9 of his 20 wins are via knockout, 7 via submission. So 16 of his 20 wins via finish. He has been a finisher. Now, Kyle is a Bellator and King of the Cage alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, 0-2 in the UFC. 10 of his 18 wins are via knockout. And he has a 4-inch reach advantage and a 2.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, this could turn out to be one of those high-paced, high-action, quick finishes as well. which would probably be good early in the card. It could also be to turn out to be a non-technical, ugly fight. The loser here will probably be cut from the UFC, so I expect these guys to send it. I think, again, Kyle's best path is to catch Rebecki and counter off of him because he overextends on his big swings, or maybe try to get in a position to grapple. Mateusz doesn't shy away from shooting his own takedowns, but he is susceptible to being taken down. I do think Rebecki is going to starch him with the big shot. For that reason, I'm taking Mateusz Rebecki. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Dennis the Great Buzukja, 28 years old with a 12-6 record, taking on Bogdan the Unleashed Grad. I think that's a new nickname. 30 years old with a 15-4 record. Now here we get two men that are young, barely hitting the edge or the surface of their prime, kind of trying to survive the UFC roster. I do expect to see the best versions of themselves in this fight, but I do think Bogdan is more well-rounded, and Dennis is typically fighting in one-round wars to kill or be killed. We get Rebecki, we get Dennis, and we get Uroš Medić. That's just how these guys fight. Bogdan has plenty of knockouts, so this is going to be a fun, chaotic brawl, unless Bogdan looks to avoid danger and grapples his way to victory. Breaking this down, Dennis trains out of the Goat Shed. He's a Bellator, Ring of Combat, Contender Series 2 times, UAE Warriors, and Cage Fury alum. He's been around, tough path to the UFC. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and is only 1-2 since 2024. Again, this is massive for him. 5 of his 12 wins are via knockout. Now, Bogdan is also a Contender Series 2 times alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and is 2-2 in the UFC. 9 of his 15 wins are via knockout. 2 of his 4 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Again, this is most likely to turn into a bar brawl, but stylistically it should deliver for the fans. Both men need a win if they want to continue in the UFC. They've had plenty of lifelines, getting 2 cracks at the Contender Series, and Dennis even had to do more work after winning his second Contender Series fight. Bogdan has fought some stiff competition, and he's hung in there. So I'm interested to see if he tries to keep it on the feet or not. But I am taking Bogdan Grad. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. In the prelim headliner, this is my pick for fight of the night. We have Ledovit, Mr. Highlight Klein. 31 years old with a 24-5-1 record, taking on Tofiq Musayev. 36 years old with a 23-6 record. I'm always a homer to Tofiq. My first and only Bellator event in Tacoma, Washington, he put on a show. But at least we're getting Tofiq against another heavy and powerful striker. When he suffers losses, it's usually to a good grappler. But man, this just showcases how deep the lightweight division is. You're getting random bangers like this once a month. This violence is pure, or this division has pure unranked violence any given day. Now, Tofiq doesn't have time in his corner as he's already 36 years old, so he needs to start stacking up quality wins if he wants to last. Musayev actually resorted to grappling for his first UFC victory against a young and talented Ignacio Bahamondes back in March. I don't think he's going to have success in that department with Klein. He does really good mixing things up. He even won his last fight after breaking his ankle. Both guys have great kickboxing. I just think Ledovit is going to have a big advantage being younger and fresher, but this is a pretty big name for him as well. He can't be patient. He's been known to just wait a little bit too much and try to sit and counter. I want to see him be aggressive. He's going to have to put Tofiq on his back foot. Breaking this down, Ledovit has a southpaw stance. He's an Octagon alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 4-1 since 2024. 9 of his 24 wins are via knockout, 8 via submission, so 17 of his 24 wins via finish. He is a finisher, and he has a 3.5-inch reach advantage. Now, Tofiq is a Ryzen alum and former champion, and a Bellator alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak, 1-1 in the UFC. 18 of his 23 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 6 losses are via submission. Now, both men are very talented. Tofiq has gnarly kickboxing, but I think Klein is going to have the power advantage and is going to try to have Musayev mix things up because Klein is more well-rounded and has more ways to victory. There is a chance either man could knock each other out. While it's standing, it should be a fun showdown that will deliver for the fans. Again, this is my early contender for Fight of the Night. I'd actually have this is the main card opener instead of what they have. Regardless, I'm taking Ludovic Klein. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Now, in the main card, we are breaking down 5 fights. So let's get into it. To kick off the main card, we have Robert Robzilla Valentin, 31 years old with a 12-6-1 record, taking on Dusko Thunder Todorovic, 32 years old with a 13-6 record. So this is another matchup between two men in their primes, but have had very underwhelming starts to their UFC careers. Another situation where guys need to make a statement here if they want to have a chance lasting on the UFC roster and making some real money. Dusko has not looked good since he's been in the UFC. He is a powerful striker. And Robert, meanwhile, has had some stiff competition, but I think will have the speed advantage in this fight. And I do think he is more of a creative striker and a little bit more elusive. Dusko's just kind of a flat-footed, heavy-handed guy. He kind of stands in a straight line and has more traditional striking. Breaking this down, Robert is an Ultimate Fighter and Erceg alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak, 1-3 in the UFC. 7 of his 11 wins are via submission. 3 of his 6 losses are also via submission. So to submit or be submitted. And he does have a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, Dusko has an orthodox stance. He has a black belt in BJJ and Taekwondo. He's a Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 1-2 since 2024. 8 of his 13 wins are via knockout, 4 via submission. So 12 of his 13 wins are via finish, and 4 of his 6 losses are via knockout. Now, this is probably going to be another ugly, technical, kind of chaotic fight. Dusko is going to look to plod forward and cut the cage off on Robert. But Robert, again, has a much wider array of attacks. And although he has a bunch of submission victories, it usually comes after he's beating his opponents up on the feet. And if Dusko does try to grapple, he can't keep that neck out, compromise, or Robzilla is going to snatch it. But Dusko has been grappling heavy as of late, and Robert has been taken down. I don't expect Dusko to be able to hold Rob down and steal the decision. For that reason, I'm taking Robert Valentin. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have the heavyweight debut of Aleksandar Rocket Rakic, 34 years old with a 14-6 record and the number 13 next to his name, taking on Marcin Tybura, 40 years old with a 27-11 record and the number 12 next to his name. Now, Marcin's nearing 41 years old. He's mostly a grappling-dependent heavyweight at this point. He welcomes an uber-athletic and explosive Aleksandar to the heavyweight division. Rakic has had a lot of years of injuries, kind of up and down career, a string of 4 losses to championship light contenders in the light heavyweight division, and 2 of those losses were via pretty vicious knockouts. But he did have quality wins against Thiago Santos and Anthony Smith. He just hasn't risen to the occasion to be the light heavyweight champion, and I think he will have some advantages at heavyweight with his speed and elusiveness. But I'm going to be interested to see how he looks bulking up. I'm sure he's taking his time to do it right, but this will be a good stiff test for him in the new division. A lot like the Robert Whittaker, his light heavyweight debut. Now, I bet at most Rakic probably walks in the octagon at 245. Marcin, after his last performance, where he lost to Tyrell Fortune on short notice. Seems like his best days are past him, and the days of being a ranked heavyweight contender, he's closer to retirement. Breaking this down, Alexander trains out of American Top Team. He has a brown belt in BJJ. He's on a 4-fight losing streak, only 1-4 since 2021, hasn't been active due to those injuries. 9 of his 14 wins are via knockout. 3 of his 6 losses are via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now Marcin trains out of Syndicate MMA. He's got a black belt in BJJ. He has the second most decision wins in UFC heavyweight history with 8. That's behind Andrei Arlovsky. He has the third most total fight time in UFC heavyweight history, 4 hours, 9 minutes, and 26 seconds. The second most control time in heavyweight history, 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds. Second most top position time in heavyweight history, 56 minutes and 31 seconds. And second most total strikes landed in heavyweight history, 1,622. That's behind Arlovsky. He's tied with Junior Dos Santos for third most bouts in heavyweight history with 23. He's an M1 alum and former champion. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and even 3-3 since 2024. 10 of his 27 wins are via knockout. 6 of his 11 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Again, Marcin has been winning due to his grappling. He snuck out a close decision against a young and talented Mick Parkin back in March of 2025. That wasn't that long ago, so he's still staying active. This isn't going to be a cakewalk for Rakic in his heavyweight debut. I do think Marcin will test him, but he should have such a massive speed and striking advantage that he should be able to avoid danger and be elusive enough not to be taken down. And that's critical because Rakic doesn't seem like he has much of a chin left. A lot of people are touching it and he's going to sleep. And Marcin hasn't had a knockout victory in the UFC since 2021. For that reason, I'm taking Alexander Rakic. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that H down and we getting that bread. Moving on to the co-main event. We have Navajo Sterling, 28 years old with an undefeated 10-0 record and the number 15 next to his name, taking on Jan John Blachowicz, 43 years old with a 29-11-2 record and the number 4 next to his name. Now Jan goes from fighting Bogdan Guskov to now another young, talented, rising kickboxer in Navajo who's getting a pretty big jump up in competition. He's fighting a former champion who still packs a punch in his 40s. Jan has fought for 2 draws since 2022 and hasn't had a win since May of 2022, but I do think he's going to test Navajo and give us a clear picture of Navajo's potential today. Breaking this down, Navajo has a kickboxing style. He has an orthodox stance. He trains out of City Kickboxing. He's a King of the Ring 2-time champion, WKBF and WKN kickboxing champ. He's a Contender Series alum. He's on a 10-fight winning streak, 6-0 in the UFC, and 6 of his 10 wins are via knockout. Now, Jan has a black belt in BJJ. He won gold in the 2008 Muay Thai Worlds and bronze in 2007. He's a KSW alum and former champ with 2 successful title defenses. He's a former light heavyweight champion with 1 successful title defense. He's the first male Polish champion in UFC history. He has the second most total fight time in UFC light heavyweight history, 4 hours, 51 minutes, and 56 seconds. He has the second most significant strikes landed in UFC lightweight history, 1,037. The third most total strikes landed in UFC light heavyweight history, 1,466. The most decision bouts in UFC light heavyweight history with 13. He was the 2020 Male Fighter of the Year. He's on a 2-fight losing streak with 2 draws, so a really weird 1-2-2 since 2022. 9 of his 29 wins are via knockout, 9 via submission, so 18 of his 29 wins via finish. For me, Jan has kind of had a brutal downfall after he lost his belt to Glover Teixeira. He then had a draw against Magomed Ankalaev, didn't get a rematch. Then he got a draw against Guskov, was supposed to get a rematch. But now he gets a killer again who is much faster, full of confidence. But Jan's going to have to leverage his really good leg kicks because he has serious power. Anything is possible. I just think Navajo is going to be in and out, picking him apart, keeping the movement going, and could put his hands on him. Unless Jan is able to get takedowns, then things are going to really be interesting. Navajo was taken down 5 times in the first round and was controlled by Jan Kutalaba, but he ended up gassing himself out for the second round back in June. But I think Navajo is up for the challenge. Jan Blachowicz is 43 years old. For that reason, I'm taking Navajo Sterling. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. I'm going with all the youth on this one. Then in the unique main event, Uroš being from Serbia, I do think that's the only reason this is the main event. But we get Uroš, the Dr. Mladić, 33 years old with a 13-3 record and the number 14 next to his name, taking on Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez, 39 years old with a 20-5 record and the number 15 next to his name. I just finished the Joe Rogan Experience episode with D-Rod explaining his time in Mexico. He was incarcerated for having an ounce of weed going from San Diego after his last victory and celebrating in Tijuana. Went through a lot of chaos. Really cool story to hear about. But he talked about not having proper nutrition. He was able to get in with the cartel and have like the VIP section of the prison and was able to train, made his own training materials for a punching bag. A guy used to have boxing experiences and held mitts for him. So it's not like he was locked up and didn't have any training. But he talked about not having good nutrition, lack of protein, so he really slimmed down. And he's only been out of prison for a few months. So it is a tall task for him, especially traveling across the world. And not to knock the main event, but this is a pretty brutal main event. I mean, Daniel hasn't fought in over a year due to that incident in Mexico. You know, he has rattled off some impressive wins. He's been boxing his opponents. He's got nice tight defense and nice technique. But now he's getting a power striker that loves to take chances, is going to look to walk him down, especially on home turf. You know, I think if Daniel wasn't nearing 40, this would probably be more competitive of a fight, especially if he wasn't just malnutrition for a year in jail. I'm just not sure if he's going to be ready to deal with the arsenal of attacks coming his way in this fight. Breaking this down, Uroš trains out of King's MMA. He has a blue belt in BJJ, an orange belt in judo. He's a Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, 4-1 since 2024. 11 of his 13 wins are via knockout. Now, Daniel has a southpaw stance. He trains out of Syndicate MMA with a purple belt in BJJ. He's a King of the Cage, Bellator, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, 3-1 since 2024. 9 of his 20 wins are via knockout, and he does have a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, Daniel has only been finished in the UFC once since, and that was against Ian Gary back in May of 2023 due to a nasty head kick. But Uroš is going to sell out trying to throw bombs on him and put him in a pressure cooker. If Daniel can weather the storm early and get this fight into the second half, late into round 2 and into round 3, I do think he can outlast Uroš and dig deep and change the tides to still a victory. But that's a big ask. A man in his prime coming off consecutive highlight knockouts, again on home turf. For that reason, I'm going with Uroš Mladić. I am putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Again, not a very deep card, a ton of favorites. I do think the Ludovic Klein Tofiq Musayev fight is going to be the most interesting. It will be interesting to see Rakic at heavyweight and how good Navajo Sterling can be against top-level competition. But next week, we go back to the Apex, another light and random card. The headliner and really the only major fight is 8th-ranked Mateusz Gamrot and 12th-ranked Quillian Salkild a big prove-it moment for Quillian. But again, it's early morning action. Get up, get your Irish coffees. I'm going to be hitting the links. I have a friend, my friend Dave from Seattle, coming to visit. Back-to-back early morning days of golf. It's hot as shit out here, so I'm going to have to try to survive. But looking forward to it. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. That's episode 157. See you next week.